Okay, Gewalt. We are up to the Mishnah on Tav. Samach Gimel Amar Aleph. Oh man, we forgot which is which.
How to taste it.
Oh, it doesn't really matter.
No, that's why I got another cup.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay,
Okay.
Gewalt.
I drank some of it.
It's like Shrine from a Rebbe now. Not like I'm reading Shrine. Okay, we have the Gemara on the Samach Gimel Amar Aleph. We're starting from the new Mishnah, 4 lines from the top. So we've discussed the different karbanos, and now we're up to the menachos. Menachos hayu nikmatzos bechol mokim bazar. Menachos, you could do smicha, you could do kemitza anywhere in the Azara, as Rashi points out. The ain tun in tzafon. They don't have to be nikmatz on the tzafon. Unlike all the other karbanos that are kosher kochim that require shchita b'tzafon, even though mincha is called kodesh kochim, it does not require the committed to them b'tzafon. When achalos lefnim and akloim lezichikuna b'chol machal liyom v'laylat chatzos, but they're eaten like a kodesh kochim, which would mean dafke for male kohanim within the confines of the Azara, as Rashi says, "Dechsiv l'chol karbanam u'l'chol minchasam u'l'chol chatasam v'samach le b'kodesh hakodeshim toichlenu kol zachar yoichal loisai." That's how we know that the mincha is only eaten in the Azara, and how long? Within all carbon minchas from the mincha of the lachmet. Zog the Heilige Gemara. Amar Abba Lozer, mincha shenik mitzah behechel kshera. What if they did a kmitza not in the Azara, but inside the hechel itself? It will be kosher, because you find something similar to a kmitza that did occur in the hechel. Shekein matinu besilik bazichin. The bazichin were the part of the lechem aponim that they were makrib on the mizbech. So we know the lechem aponim was compared to a carbon mincha. So you see that the matir of the minchas lechem aponim was separated, the kmitza, so to speak. The equivalent of the kmitza was done in the heichal. So too, every mincha, the kmitza will be kosher b'heichal. As Rashi says, "B'sila shekein masinu b'silik b'zichon sheheina askara leminchas lechem aponim k'dichsev v'hoisa lalechem la'askara." And therefore, umatirin es alechem, they are matir the lechem aponim to be distributed to the kohanim. V'silukan miyal shulchan aponim shebeheichal v'mokim kmita the benachos and the kmatzos. The act of removing them from the shulchan by the lechem aponim is similar to the act of doing a kmitza on a regular mincha. Gewaltig. Mosav Rabbi Yirmiyah, Frek Rabbi Yirmiyah Akasha on this halacha. It says v'kamat misham. Let's look at the pasuk inside. The pasuk says v'avia el bnei ahara nekodim. The Zor, the Yisrael, will bring his micha and present it to the kohanim, and the kamat misham, and the kohanim will be komitz from there. Maloi kumtoi misolta umishamna al kolovaynosa. And then Victor Akonis has karasam as bechel isha rechel nichach l'shem. But we're focusing on the beginning of the pasuk. V'avia el bnei aharon hakohanim. The Zor brings it to the bnei Aaron. The kamat misham, and the kmitza is done over there. Let's have a look at how the Gemara darshans the pasuk. Moshe Rabbi Yirmiyah. The kamat misham mimokim sheragle hazar oimdais. Where does the kmitza occur? Where the Zor is standing. Meaning, where are you allowed to do the kmitza? Only in a place where a Zor can stand. As Rashi says, wherever a Zor may not go, the kmitza may not occur there. It's only misham from where the Zor can stand. So that would tell us that in the heichal you cannot do a kmitza. So how could Rabbi Lazar say mincha? Shenik mitzvah heichal is kshera from Rabbi Yirmiyah's brisa that he quotes, which we learn from the pasuk, that the Kemitza has to be done at a place where Yisrael can stand, and surely a Yisrael cannot stand in the Heichal. Zok the Gemara, Ben Beseira says, Minayin she'im kamatz bismoil. If the Kemitza was done in a pasul oifen, it was done with the left hand of the kohen. How do you know sheyachzer? You just put the whatever you took out with your left hand. You just put it back into the basket or into the container with all the other mixed mincha, and then the v'yik might be in, and you should do it once again with your right hand. Tamudayim misham imokim shekamitz kvar misham, meaning go back, do the kmitza at a place where a kmitza had already been done. Bipsol. So we learn two things from misham, but one of the two is that the kmitza may only be in a place where a zar is allowed to be, excluding the hechel. Zok the Gemara, Ika the Amri, there are those who remember the story as who Moshev law, but who Mefark law. The same Rabbi Yirmiyah that asked the Kasha presented a teretz, and there are those who learn Ika the Amri, Amalei Rabbi Kiva, Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Tachlifa. It was Rabbi Kiva who told Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Tachlifa, Asberlach, I will explain to you the reasoning behind this. The Shita of Gebetzer brings a gears of Rabbi Yaakov, Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Tachlifa. Asberlach lo nitzracha ela lahachshir kol hazarakum. The pasuk that says Misham is not to tell you that a bedavka has to be only in a place where a sar can stand. Rather, it's to tell us that not you might think that a mincha has to be only b'tzofain. Its process has to be b'tzofain. Kamash v'non anywhere in the azara is mutter. If it wasn't for the kamat misham, I would have thought hoyel v'oila kache kachim umincha kache kachim, just like the oila is kache kachim and the mincha is kache kachim. Ma oila to una tzofain, just like the oila has to be shechled by the tzofain. Av mincha to una tzofain, ma oila. So you might have thought that it needs tzofain. In fact, why would I think that it needs tzofain? There's a binyan av. Ma oila shekein kola. The oila is completely burnt on the mizbech. It's a davar chomer. Maybe that's why it needs tzofain. Who said the mincha will require tzofain? Zok the Gemara, maybe you learn a binyan av from a korban chatos. Zok the Gemara, you can't learn from a korban chatos either, because malachata shekein micha peres al chayvik risos. It also has a chomer. And me'osham mala'osham shekein minidamim. And mikulu, and what about if you want to combine them all together and make a matzat? No, because malakulu, they all share a chumrah, shekein minidamim. They all have zrikas adam, and mincha does not. So just because they need shchita b'tzofain, why would I think that the Kemitza has to be only b'tzofain? Ela isrich. I'll tell you why I would think so. Kesol kedai dachamina. Hoy luksiv v'gish ala mizbeach. In both these psukim, the Torah talks about the Agosha and the Kemitza in the very same pasuk. You look these psukim up, and in each pasuk, Agosha and the Kemitza are alluded to. So maybe we would make the following drasha: Ma Agosha b'keren ma'ravas droimis, just like the Torah says beferish that you have to bring before the Kemitza is done, the container with all of the mixture in it needs to be brought to the southwest point of the mizbeach. So I would have thought if the Hagosha needs to be there, Av Kemitza Beker and Maravas Droimis, maybe the Kemitza would have to be there as well. Kamash Malon, the Kamat Misham, where anywhere in the Azara, anywhere in the Azara where the Zara can be, that's where it's kosher to make the Kemitza. So this seems like a very benign Gemara. But Rashi has an issue in Tosfos as well with the gears, because the Gemara wanted to say ma'oila tuna tzofain af mincha tuna tzofain. So if we look at Rashi, Rashi says this is simply a mistake. Zogt Rashi. I can't find the Rashi that I was looking for. I'm making a mistake. Am I mixing up the Morris? I must be mixing this up with something, so maybe I will refer to later tomorrow. So I apologize. So a couple of you would have thought that the mincha, the kamitz of the mincha has to occur b'davka right near the corner of the mizbeach where the hagash has to be. We have two psukim that seem to indicate that they're done right beside each other. Kamash v'lo misham, the kamatz misham, the kamitz can occur anywhere in the asar. Beautiful. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Shlomim sheshachton behechal. What happens if you took a carbon shlomim and you shechted the carbon shlomim inside the hechal? Ksherin, that carbon will be kosher. Shenemar v'shachtoi pesach oil mayid. What does the pasuk say in reference to the shchitas of shlomim? It says, "V'samach yodoi al roish karbanoi u'shechatoi pesach oil mayid." Now, what is the pasuk telling us? Shechted by the door of the oil mite. So it's referencing the oil mite. If the Torah just wanted to tell us that you shechted in the Azara, it could have said this v'shechted b'Azara. But that was Pesach oil mite. Why is the Torah calling the Azara Pesach oil mite? The Torah is to tell you that avada in the oil mite you're allowed to shechted, but you're even allowed to shechted outside the oil mite. So the oil moed is the ikr. So therefore we have a svara v'lo yehi tafel chamer min ha'ikr. If the Torah only expresses that you're allowed to shech the carbon shalom anywhere in the Azara by saying Pesach oil moed, anywhere that's near the Pesach oil moed, kol shegein the ikr, kol shegein the oil moed itself is a place where you could shech the carbon shalom. Let's see Rashi. Shenema v'shachta Pesach oil moed. Alma midatala hechsher azara l'shlomim b'pesach ha'moed. When the Torah is hinging the whole hechsher to shech the shlomim anywhere in the azara by hinging it to the oil moed, it says b'pesach ha'moed shemamina oil moed ikar v'azara tafel. It must be the main place where one can shech is the oil moed, the hechel, and the azara is tafel. Beautiful. Meisei Rabbi Yochanan, do you actually say such a svara? So here it says Rabbi Yochanan ben Beseira, but the Shita Mukubetzes offers up another girsa that says Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, which is who we're usually used to hearing from when we hear ben Beseira. What happens if the Azara is under siege and Goyim are shooting arrows and bombs and projectiles? So it's simply dangerous to walk around Azara. How do you know Shekohanim Nichnasim L'Sham? How do you know that the Kohanim can go inside the Heichel, and they can eat korbanos in the Heichel, inside the Heichel itself? Talmud Loimer, it says in the pasuk, "V'kodesh hakodeshim toichlenu." So kodesh hakodeshim meaning it could be referring even to the Heichel. Rashi says, "V'kodesh hakodeshim Heichel b'mashma." Practical Gemara. How could you say that? V'amai nema b'chatzar oil moyed yachluha. It says in the pasuk, "B'chatzar oil moed yochluha." You're supposed to eat it in the chatzar oil moed, v'lo yehi tafel chamer min ha'ikr, and the tafel shouldn't be more chamer than the ikr. So if it says b'chatzar oil moed yochluha, the same way you said that b'chatzar oil moed obviously indicates that you're allowed to do it inside the heichal, legabe the shchita. So legabe the achila, you should say the same thing. So you're surely allowed to eat it in the oil moed itself. So why did the Gemara need to bring a special pasuk of to tell you that you're allowed to eat the basar of kodesh kodeshim in the heichal? Using your logic of the way the Torah expressed eating the meat of a carbon of a kodesh kodeshim is b'chatzar oil moed yachluah. It's all totally in oil moed. So once again, based on your logic, surely it should be mutter to eat basar from kodesh kodeshim in the heichal. Zok Gemara, there's a very big difference. Haki hashta hasam avoida. when we were talking about the zrika, about the shchita of the carbon shlomim, that's an avodah that's done l'kavod the Rebbeinu Shlom. The adam oved b'makam rabbi, when someone is discussing, can I do the avodah for my adon in the place where my adon is in the heichal? There I'm reading lo yetafel chamim in the ikar. If the Torah expresses the place to shech the shlomim by saying al chatzar oil moed or pesach oil moed, there's a svara to say that if you can shech outside, you can shech inside by the adon himself, who you are serving with this avodah of shechita. But achila, that's not avodah. That's for the benefit of the eved. That's Hashem paying his avodah. They know the makam rabbi. Where do you ever find that a servant takes care of his personal needs in the chamber with the king? Never. They have a service kitchen where they do their own business. So therefore, lo yehi tafel chamim neikar lo yarina. There, the logic doesn't play out that way. The whole svar of lo yehi tafel chamim neikar is when you're talking about avodah. By avodah, if you're allowed to do the avodah outside the echel, kol shkein inside the echel, right in front of the other. But when you're talking about taking care of yourself, there you don't say if I can if I can eat it in the oil moed, if I can eat it in the chatzar, surely I can eat it in the oil moed. That's not a svara to say when you're talking about something that's been done, the benefit of Kohen. Okay, so now we finish the sugya of the mincha, which takes us to the sugya of the chatas oif. Chatas oif, hoyse nasis, al keren deroimis myrobis. Where did they process the chatas oif? Let's say what is the processing that we're talking about? Is it talking about the malika? Is it talking about the zrika sadam? So that will come out clear in the Gemara. So chatas oif hoyse nasis al keren deroimis myrobis, on the southwestern corner of the mizbeach. We'll see exactly where on that corner, on the top, the bottom. Ubechol makom hoysa kshera. Really, you would be able to do the malika anywhere. Anywhere in the Azara, you could do the malika. Ela zeh hoysa makayva. But this keren deroimis myrobis was its place. So this is a little bit hard to understand. If this is its place, then how can you do it everywhere? So we're going to soon see in the Gemara that the malika could have been done anywhere, but the spritzing the dam had to be al keren deroimis myrobis. So therefore, the Mishnah says, you could really do the malika anywhere, but since you're going to be doing this rikas adam right there, and you want it to be right there so that we don't lose the blood from the neck of the bird, because there's no kabbalah and akeli, it's squirts straight onto the mizbeach. Therefore, it would be logical to do the malika right there as well. Ushloisha dvarim hoysa oisa keren mishameshes milamata ushloisha milamayla. That keren, the southwestern corner of the mizbeach, had many purposes. There were 6 things that were done by that keren. 3 of them were done on top of the mizbeach by the keren on top, and 3 of them were done on the lower half of the mizbeach, kedeged the lower half. And the Brisa lists off what they are. Chatas ha'oif, milamata, on the lower half of this mizbeach, by the corner of the southwest. Chatas ha'oif, that's where they did the zrika of the chatas ha'oif. 1. The hagashos, that's where they brought the mincha. Before they did the kemitza of the mincha, the whole mixture in the container was brought to the southwest corner of the mizbeach. Again, on the bottom, so the kohen was standing on the floor of the azara and doing the malik of the chatas ha'oif. He stood on the floor of the azara when he brought the container with the mincha in it. And ushiyari adam, the shiyari adam, we learned that you pour on the mizbeach was done at that corner. Umilamalon, what was done on top of the mizbeach in that area? Nisuch hamayim, on sukkahs they poured water. We referenced nisuch hayayin. I'm sorry, I said nisuch hayayin when they poured wine. But most karbanis, they had nesachim afterwards. They poured wine, and we learned that there was a little drain on the top surface of the mizbeach right near that southwestern keren. That's where he poured the wine into. And hamayim on sukkahs when they poured the water. We referenced that yesterday when we talked about the kohen who did it the wrong way, poured it on his foot, and everybody threw the sroigim at him. The oilas ha'oif, and the oilas ha'oif, the zrika is down there as well. Keshihiraba b'mizrach. Where did they normally process the oilas ha'oif? on the Mizrach, on the east, on the southeast corner. But what if it was a very busy day and there simply wasn't enough room for all the Kohanim working on Oila Soif that day? If there was not enough room, they would do the Malik of the Oila Soif on the top of the Mizbeach on the left side. So let's see what Rashi says. The main place where the oil is supposed to be processed by oil soif is by the southeastern corner. The first time of the Gemara, that the Gemara will explain that the reason is the Beis Hadeshen was to the right of the ramp. So you want to part of the oil soif, they have to take the one of the parts of the digestive system. Also, they had to take it and throw it to the Beis Hadeshen from the makom where they were processing the bird. So therefore, it makes sense to do the malika at the place on the mizbech that's closest to the Beis Hadeshen. Lizrek shamura v'noitcha k'dichsev hishlach el makom hadeshen. U'chashiraba sham, if it was very busy at the southeastern corner of the mizbech, sheyesh kohanim harbe b'aisha keren asukin b'oilois, and therefore veinlos and makom b'soiv v'lamoid, and this Kohen couldn't find place on the side to stand because the oila you were makriv on the top half of the mizbeach. So the kohanim had to be standing on the side, and there was crowding over there. Then you could go to an alternative place. Instead of going to the right, you can go to the left. So it's not as close to the Beis Hadeshen as the southeastern corner, but it's still closer than the other kronos. So Beis Hadeshen Shomach L'Kevesh Haya B'Mizrachish L'Kevesh. The Beis Hadeshen was on the ground of the Azara, just to the right or to the east of the ramp, U'L'Drei Mishal Mizbech, and south of the Mizbech. Beautiful. Zok Gemara Kol Oilim L'Mizbech Oilin Derech Yamin. Whenever you're going up to the Mizbech to do avodah, the way they went up is they actually had two-way traffic on the ramp. So people going up the ramp stayed on the right. So the traffic pattern on the ramp was like in North America, not like England, where you drove on the left side of the road. Rather, everyone drove on the right side of the road. So they walk up the right side of the ramp. Umakifin v'yarden derech shmoel, and they would end up, if they finished doing their avodah on the right side, they would go all the way around the mizbeach until they reached the west side or the left side, and then they would come down. So there was the traffic pattern on the mizbeach and on the ramp was a one-way traffic pattern. They came up the right side, they went around the soivev, and then they came down on the left side. So it was one-way traffic. Except chutz min ha'oila legimel elu, except someone who came up for one of these three things, the three things that are done at the southwest Karen. What are those? We just outlined them. If someone was there to process an oila from overflow, nisach hamayim and nisach hayayin, there they didn't go on the right side and go all the way around. They went up to Mizbech and they went straight to the left. They went straight to the left. They did their thing, and then again they turned to the right, and they turned right back around, and they came down the ramp. So this is the things that were done by this southwestern Karen were the only items that changed from the standard traffic pattern. Zok Rashi, L'Gimel Dvarim Elu, the fourth line from the top on Rashi, Hanasim B'Karen Ma'Ravos Droimis, which are Nesachim, V'Oilos Ha'oif, Kishu Rabba, Oil the Mizbeach, the coin would go up to Mizbeach. Coin of the smile, he would turn to the left. But Oisa Karen, to that Karen, which is the southwestern Karen. And when he finished doing whatever business he needed to do up there, he just turns around to the right. So he turns clockwise and he turns around and goes back down the ramp. The Gemara Parach, the Gemara is going to ask, it needs to be Derech Yamin. The Gemara is going to answer, it is Derech Yamin. Because once you're up there, if you turn clockwise, you go turn right back around. Well, Gimel Dvarim Anasim Ba Lamaton Eina Oila. The three things that are done on the lower half of the Keren Maravis Derimis, there's no issue of traffic patterns because you're not going up the ramp at all. You're working from the ground. Beautiful. Zog to Gemara. Minohan Mili How do we know that the Chatas Ha'oif, its Makoim, is by the southwestern Keren? Amar Bishu Amar Kra, it says, Lo Yosim Aleh Shemen, V'lo Yitna Aleh Lavoina. This is talking about a Minchas Chayte. Ki Chatas Hi. So we're talking about a carbon that either is brought as a behema, or if someone's poor, it's brought as an oif, and if someone's very poor, he brings a mincha. So when we're talking about the mincha that's in place of the oif, the Torah says ki chatasi. So we learn that chatas kruya mincha. The chatas is called a mincha because what was supposed to be the chatas ha'oif is now a carbon mincha. Umincha kruya chatas. Oh, so this is where the girsa change was. I had confused it. So it says in the pasuk, Lo yosem alazak Rashi v'minchas choytek siv haba tachas chatas ha'oif bedalei dalus. If someone bring a minchas chatas because he couldn't even afford an oif, that's what the pasuk was talking to. V'kari rachmana chatas. The Torah, when we were talking about this mincha, referred to it as a chatas. Yashmina nami shachatas kruya mincha. So it's mashma that a chatas is called a mincha. Mashma nami ki a chatas nebchol yis mincha. If the korban chatas oif now is becoming a mincha, you see that these two words, these two descriptions are interchangeable. The korban mincha is called the korban chatas, and the korban chatas is called the korban mincha. And we learn from there a similarity. Ma chatas tu'una tzafain. Just like the chatas has to be shechted but tzafain, af mincha tu'una tzafain, so too the mincha has to be processed on the tzafain. It's this line that Rashi says is patently false. The mincha doesn't have to be processed but tzafain. We just learned a Mishnah that says the mincha could be done anywhere in Dazara. And that's what Rashi points out. So let's see Rashi. Ma chatas tu'una tzafain yoidei ani shegir sezu shibush. I have no doubt, Rashi, this is simply a mistake. Sharei loy chatas oif v'loy mincha tu'una tzafain. Say the chatas oif and say the mincha doesn't need tzafain. So how could you say ma chatas tu'una tzafain av mincha tu'una tzafain? So Rashi goes through a whole shaklantaria, but he says it's impossible. Direct Rashi, I'm going to change the girsa. The near be'inai, you know what it should say? Ma chatas psula shaloi l'shma af mincha psula shaloi l'shma. That's what it should say. So we're comparing chatas to a mincha and a mincha to a chatas. Ma chatas psula shaloi l'shma af mincha psula shaloi l'shma, and uma mincha bekeren maravas deraimis, just like the korban mincha we know is processed bekeren maravas deraimis. Av chatas, so to the chatas bekeren maravas deraimis. So how do we know that this rikas adam of the chatas has to occur? Bekeren maravas deraimis. We know it because the Torah refers to this korban chatos as a mincha, and we know that by the mincha it needs to be done bekeren maravas deraimis. Umincha gufa minon. How do you know that the mincha needs to be processed bekeren maravas deraimis? The Tanya, because we have a brayso. It says in the pasuk lefnei Hashem. Let's look at the pasuk inside. It says v'zois taris hamincha hakrei v'oisa b'nei Haran lefnei Hashem el pnei hamizbah. So we learn from here lefnei Hashem. Yochel b'mayrib, I would have thought that your makrivit b'mayrib on the west side of the Mizbeach, that's directly lefnei Hashem, that's directly opposite the entrance to the Heichal. Talmud Loimer el Pnei HaMizbeach. It has to be by the front, by the entrance of the Mizbeach. We know that the front entrance of the Mizbeach, we learned yesterday, is the south side. So we seem to have a contradiction in the pasuk. It says of Pnei Hashem, which would indicate the west side. It did say of Pnei Mizbeach, which would indicate the south side. Iyal Pnei Mizbeach, Yochel B'darim. Talmud Loimer Lefnei Hashem. So we have over here a little bit of a contradiction. How do we decipher the exact place where the mincha must be processed? Haketzat magisha bekeren maravis deraimis keneged chuda shal keren v'dayoy. You have to bring the mincha to the point, mamish the point, so it counts as maravis and as draimis, and that will be good enough. What's the lashon of v'dayoy? You should have just said magisha bekeren maravis draimis keneged chuda shal keren. What's the v'dayoy? The Rashi's v'dayoy is teaching us another halach. It's teaching us that let's say I have a container, and all of the mixture for the mincha was all the way on one side of the container. If I just touch the container to the corner of the mizbeach, even though in that corner I don't even have mincha, the mincha is on the other side of the keli, that would be good enough. Rabbi Lazar, Yochel Yagishan Lo Ma'arav Shel Keren, or the Deraim Shel Keren, you might have thought that where do you bring your mincha? Either immediately to the west side of this point or immediately to the south side of this point. Amrit, I'm going to tell you how to decipher this puzzle. Kol Mokoim She'ata Moite Shnei Mekrois. Whenever you have two psukim, Echad Mekayim Atzmai Mekayim Chaverei. If you follow the instructions of one pasuk, it will also fulfill and not contradict something that the other pasuk says. But if I follow precisely what the other pasuk says, but if I follow the other pasuk, it actually will be contradictory to the first pasuk. What you do is you don't follow the pasuk that if you follow it precisely, it's going to contradict what the other pasuk requires. Rather, you pick an interpretation which is like the pasuk that will fit in with both psukim. Now let's see what this means. Kisha'ata oimer, when it says in the pasuk lifnei Hashem, that would be b'mayriv. Heichin kiyamto al pnei mizbeach. So it can't be. How are you going to be kaim al pnei mizbeach, which is the south? Uchisha'ata oimer al pnei mizbeach b'dorim. But if you say that it means b'dorim, kiyamto lifnei Hashem b'dorim. So now we're confused because the Bryce is telling me, Rabbi Lazar is telling me that if you bring it to the Durham, it won't be a stira tel Pnei Mizbeach. How is that possible? Pnei Mizbeach should be west. Heichen kayamta. Rabashi, very simple. Kasavar aitana kulam Mizbeach b'tzafan. This time Rabbi Lazar holds that the whole Mizbeach was on the north half of the Azara. So therefore, if I come straight out of the center of the Heichel and I walk straight ahead, the Mizbeach will be to my left, to the north of where I am. So therefore, the only part of the Mizbeach that was closest to the Heichel was the south Yosy, because the west Yosy is already north of the entrance. So therefore, according to Rabbi Lazar, who learns that the whole Mizbeach was B'tzafon, and the closest Yosy of this Mizbeach was the southern Yosy, it works out perfectly. Do it on the south side of the Yosy of the south side of the corner. Why? The south side of the Keren, because that's Mamish Keneged the Heichel. However, the Tanakama, who held are contradictory, because he held the Mizbeach was in the middle, and therefore the west side would contradict the south side, and therefore he learns that you do it at the actual point. Beautiful. So we have a machlokes. If you hold the Mizbeach b'tzafon, then you are magish to mincha. You bring the mincha to the south side. But if you hold that the Mizbeach was in the middle, then you would bring the mincha to the point, to the southwest point. Gewaltig. Zog to Gemara weiter. B'chol makom hoisak sheira. Really, you could process the bird, the chata sa'oif, anywhere. Because the Gemara is probing, what do you mean you could do it anywhere if you're saying, but this is its place, the southwest. Amar Bashi, Hachikam. This is what the Tana means to say. You could do the malika of the chata sa'oif anywhere in Dazar, 100%. But the southwest corner is where they made the zrikas hadam of the oif. So logic would dictate that that would be the best place to do the malika. As Rashi says, above the chudas sukkah, below the chudas sukkah, anywhere you could do the actual malika. That we know that the chatas ha'oif is directly connected to the lower half of the mizbeach. That's when we're talking about where this rika occurs. It says v'hiza midam achad zalkir. It says you spritz on the wall, but Omar Mar zakir atachin, that's referring to the lower wall. The kerem aravas deraimis nami ba'azah hudi alfinan, and the kerem aravas deraimis, we're referring to azah. Okay, so let's have a look. So the svara is since zayim akrayim also, it's logical to say that that's where the malika should have. Tanina lahad the tanur rabban. We actually have a brisa to support this. It says, Molka b'chol moka im b'mizbeach ksheira. If the malika was done anywhere on the mizbeach, for the chatas oif, the malika will be kosher. But he's a dama b'chol moka ksheira. If you spritz the blood anywhere, it will also be kosher. He's a v'lay mitza. I think the Shita Mekbet takes these words out. He's a v'lay mitza ksheira. If you made hazoya and you after the blood spritzed out of the bird, if you then squeeze the blood out, or if you didn't do that as you were supposed to, it's kosher. Ubilvad sheyitein mechut asikra ulamat. And as long as the blood was presented on the lower half of the mizbeach. Mi dam hanefesh, from the dam hanefesh of the bird, and that's the dam neshama yoytzes. So this is a very confusing brisa, because what do you mean you could spritz b'chol mokim? It's not true. The hazoya has to be on the lower half of the mizbeach. Zokmar, my kamer, what exactly is this brisa saying? Zokmar hachi kamer. Molka b'chol mokim b'mizbeach ksheira. If you made malika anywhere on the mizbeach, it will be kosher, because the malika could be anywhere in the hazoya. Mitza dama b'chol mokim b'mizbeach ksheira. And if you, after this rika where you squeeze the leftover blood out of the bird on the mizbeach, that also doesn't have to be done in a specific place. Wherever you did it, it will be kosher. You know why? Because even if you skip that step completely, it would be kosher. So if you skip that step of mitzvah completely, it will be kosher. So then if you did it in the wrong place, it can't be any worse than if you didn't do it at all. Printing on to Amud Aleph. Shem hizav al mitzvah, it would be ksheira. As long as you did the hazoya, even if he didn't do the mitzvah, that's kosher anywhere. As long as he did zrika, so it's a little bit of a complex way to express it. But what the price is saying is you could do the malika of the bird anywhere. You could do the mitzvah adam anywhere because you don't have to do mitzvah at all. So if you didn't do it, it wouldn't pass. But the critical avoida is the zrika adam of the oif, of the chatatz oif. That has to be done by the southwest corner, below the chut sikra on the lower half of the mizbeach. Okay, let's learn the Rashi that I stopped the middle because it went over to Amud Aleph, and I didn't want to turn to Amud. So let's learn that Rashi now. The malika can be done anywhere. That's only referring to the hazoya, where it says al kir on the wall, and we know what mamar is akira tachtoi. The kerem aravas deroim is nami bazohu diafinam. This that we learn from mincha, that the processing of the chatas ha'oif is done by miravas deroim, that's referring to the zrika. How do I know that it's referring to the zrika and not maybe the malika? We just mentioned a moment ago that what is the makar, that by the chatas ha'oif the process happens by the southwest corner. We learned it from a mincha. V'agashasa l'mizbeach udiyalef dumya de'akasha b'mincha. We're comparing the approaching the mizbeach with the oilos ha'oif, with the chatas ha'oif, comparing it to the presenting to the mizbeach the mincha. Umalika lav b'mizbeach. The malika had nothing to do with the mizbeach. The malika is not connected to the mizbeach. The malika is a standalone act. Hazoya has to be spritzed where on the mizbeach. So therefore, when you're talking about something that's related to the mizbeach, and you're learning from mincha that whatever was related to the mizbeach by mincha occurs at the southwest corner, so too whatever is related to the mizbeach by the chatas ha'oif is done at the southwest corner. So that's where the zrika has to be done, but the malika could be done anywhere. Zoktamar Maika Omar. Katani, it says in the Brisa, he's a dama b'chol makom, b'afilu l'mayla min achut ksheira. First, it says you can spritz the blood anywhere. V'hadar tanya b'vachi yiten nechut ashikul l'mata. It's a stira. Does the zrika have to be done in that specific place, or could it be done anywhere? V'aleka l'meimer, and you can't say that what it means is that he's a l'mayla. If you spritz l'mayla, the achachozar l'mata kamachshri, you can't say it means, yeah, you could spritz anywhere as long as at the end of the day you also spritz where you're supposed to, because that's not the loshon of Bryce is not mashma that way. So he's a dummy katani called dama b'mashma. It's mashma that when the Bryce said he's a dama, it meant all of the dama spritz there, and there was no other dam left over to spritz in the right place. So like katani, he's a midama, that he's a dama. So the Gemara says what pshat is mitzah dama It's referring to mitzui adam. She'achatos tuna mitzui achar hazisah. The halacha is by a chatas oif, after you spritz from the neck of the bird onto the mizbeach, when the blood came out, then you had to squeeze out any extra blood onto the mizbeach. That was the avoid of mitzui. The leftover dam in the bird, you squeeze out. Shemakif aguf l'mizbeach, you push the goof of the bird against the mizbeach and you squeeze. The doichik base milikasa b'kir, you push it. You push the place of the malika against the wall of the mizbeach. The adam is matzei v'yorit, and that will squeeze the blood out. So that avoida b'chamakim ksheira k'demafarish taima. That if you did it anywhere to be kosher, you know why? The mitzvah bechatas lav avoida hi lipasel b'shinui. Yes, you're supposed to do it, but it's not an avoida that would pasel if you didn't do it exactly as prescribed. How do I know? Shafilu okar hamitzu lagamrei shehiza v'loy mitzvah ksheira. Because even if you didn't do the mitzvah at all, you just made azaya, the carbon would still be kosher. Like we said in the last parak, if you have dam, you could deal with it. If you don't have, you don't have to. So you see, it's not a mandatory avodah that would be ma'akiv. Alma ika disfir le delay ma'akiv. You see, someone holds that mitzvah adam is not ma'akiv. Umehakra, and from this pasuk. Uvavache yehei azah hanasis rishon. As long as the azah, which is critical, which is done before the mitzvah, that needs to occur. Mechut asikru ulamata and midam hanefesh. It has to be midam hanefesh. So now we have clear the malika can be done anywhere, although it's logical to do the malika by the southwest corner because that's where you're going to be doing the zrika, and the mitzvah should be done there as well. But if you didn't, that's not a problem because mitzvah is not an avoida that is ma'akev, the kashrus of the carbon. Okay, we will stop here and Bet Hashem, we will be mamshich tomorrow.
Hey, folks, we have lots of time.
Yeah.
You could have gone further.
Sure, I can go a little bit further.
Yeah.
We could do one more shtickle. Should we do one more shtickle? It's only a couple of lines.
Oh, if you want to.
Okay, we might as well. Shloisha Devarim, we said that there's three things that they did on the top of the Mizbeach by the Keren, the Remis Rabbis. So Zok Gemara, Chatas Ha'oif, Hodamor. The Chatas Ha'oif, we know, I'm sorry, we're talking about the bottom. The three things that were done at the bottom of the southwest corner, the Chatas Ha'oif, we just discussed it. We know the Chatas Ha'oif is processed there. Hagashois, how do you know the Mincha is also brought to that Keren? Because it says, Vegisha El HaMizbeach, which we just discussed as well. Shiyari Adam, how do you know the Shiyari Adam needs to be brought to that corner? The Chsiv es kol dam apar yishboich al yisoid HaMizbeach, and that's referring to the par Koyin HaMashiach. Okay, Gavaldik. Okay, let's stop here.